So, day 3 of the 4th test, and it's Ask George. So Danny asks, is it bad that I saw England avoided the follow-on this morning and was pleasantly surprised?
I don't know if it's bad or not, but it's natural. I think most people would have felt the same. It's not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of them.
Can't remember. It's difficult to know when covering the test in the UK when people are waking up, but it's difficult to remember if there's ever been a time when people would have woken up at a normal time and England been doing okay.
During this series?
Yeah.
No. I mean, literally for the first ball.
Amir Naik asks, has Jonny Bairstow played himself into a 100-match test cricket career?
I mean, maybe. I know that you could argue very meanly that it's not a good thing that he's done this, but I thought it was I don't know. I was very pleased for him, and actually, it's just nice to have seen a day with some real fight in it. So I know what you're getting at. You're saying that he has had a lot of opportunities. He really has, but to be fair to him, he was messed around massively. So he probably deserves a wee bit of patience.
When you said not a good thing that he's done this, do you want to expand on that?
You could argue, couldn't you, that had he failed today, he was really, really on the edge of being dropped for the final time. And you could argue that if that had happened, it would have allowed opportunities for other people who maybe would have, played 80 tests and averaged more than 33. I'm not positive they're out there, but you could argue that.
So Darren asks which England players need taking out of the firing line for Hobart.
It's a good question. I mean, I think one or two might be injured, might they? I don't think Ben Stokes is fit. I'm not sure Josh Butler's fit. And who knows whether Jonny Bairstow's fit. So maybe one or two will have to come in from outside. There's talk of Ollie Pope keeping. But, the real worry is what you're going to do with the top order. And it is a huge worry. And I don't think there are easy answers, I'm afraid.
Are England really the 4th best team in the world, as Ashley Giles said, and what level could they realistically be by 2023? That's from Simon Best.
I think you've got to remember, Simon, that it's not very long ago since they won, and won a couple of times actually in Sri Lanka. They won in South Africa and they beat West Indies and Pakistan at home. So, keep that in mind. They've had a grim old 2021, but they were playing the 3 sides above them. They feel to me like a middle ranking side, and there's quite a gap between them and the teams below and the teams above. But maybe, they play South Africa again fairly soon. Maybe that will be a tightly contested series this time. I mean, whether you believe in the test rankings or not is completely legit. I think they're not great myself, but that is where they are placed at the moment. So it wasn't a completely unreasonable thing for Ashley Giles to say no.
Does that sound
like fourth? Is 4th enough with all the advantages English cricket has? I think it's fair enough to set the bar a bit higher than that, isn't it?
Does that South Africa Test series win look a lot better now, given what's happened there? Given South Africa team has been somewhat weak, and then no Philander or Cock now or anything like that, no du Plessis.
Sure, I mean,
India obviously. What's going on with India?
They deserve credit for winning there, yeah, particularly being one down after the first one. Sri Lanka obviously aren't the side they were, but it's still very, history tells you how difficult it is to go to Sri Lanka and win, particularly to whitewash. So, let's not absolutely rubbish the wins and magnify the losses. They have actually beaten the sides below them and lost the sides above them. I'm not saying that's good enough, but we probably need to get these defeats in a bit of perspective. It's the magnitude of the defeats in this Ashes series that I think is part of the worry. But it doesn't mean that what's gone in the past it should be completely discounted.
So moving forward from this painful series, which players from county cricket should England consider for the West Indies tour? That's
the West Indies.
Tom Rowell.
Okay. Well, I think Alex Lees has got a shout at being called up because they've got to be looking at top order players. If you're looking at uncapped players, anyway, Alex Lees would definitely be there or thereabouts. I keep suggesting Callum Parkinson, partly because he's the only bowler who's getting a lot of overs, or the only spinner rather. But I think he wouldn't let anyone down. I very much like Joe Clark. I think he is a special talent, and I hope he is not being ignored because of things which haven't got much to do with cricket, because actually I think he's been a bit unlucky in that regard. He's been found guilty by association, and that's very unfair, I think. So, but I wouldn't be surprised if they went back to Don Sibley already. I mean, I hear he's playing very well at the Nets. And they're in a desperate situation, aren't they? It's hard to imagine they're going to take Rory Burns. It's hard to imagine they're going to take Haseeb Hameed. So it does look a bit of a mess. And though Zach Crawley played 2 or 3 nice shots today, and he did, he played 2 or 3 gorgeous shots, he could have been out 2 or 3 times. So what did he make, 18? Could have been 18 for 3. I mean, he looks like a real talented potential player who probably should be out here playing grade cricket. That's probably his actual level right now, and he's been over-promoted, not really through his fault, but because of the weaknesses elsewhere. But I don't think, to get back to the question, I don't think there are massive, obvious changes which are going to happen with players that you haven't heard of before. I hope Ben Folkes is back in the side. I think that's a dead cert. He's the one who I would have had on this tour who isn't.
Robin Chipperfield asks, I realise he's getting on a bit and might only be for a couple of years, but could Owen Morgan be tempted back as Test skipper if Root steps down?
Crikey. I mean, that is a real sign of the desperation that England are in, isn't it? I mean, I reckon the last time he played was 2019, and he might not even have played then, actually. First class cricket, I mean.
Yeah, that is right, yeah.
So, is that right? Right. So, and he averaged 30 in first class cricket, maybe 32, 33, possibly. So, you're taking a guy who's never excelled at first class cricket, hasn't played it for 3 years, and asking him to captain. So, where's he going to bat? I think that would just create more trouble. I really do. Where would he bat? You're putting them in one of the middle order spots, which are actually pretty well filled. Where's he going to bat? 4, 5, 6, 7? Well, I'm not sure that's where the problems are. I take the point. I'm actually not a massive fan of the specialist captain idea. Not that he's a specialist captain, but if you look at who Mike Brearley played and who Ian Botham played as captain, I'm all for a revisionist view of those things. Ian Botham captained against the West Indies, and they didn't lose every game. That's a pretty good effort. Have you seen that West Indies side? I think he only captained against West Indies and Australia. And they were strong Australia. I think that's right, Botham. And Brearley captained against an Australia that were weakened disproportionately by World Series players. Not meaning to have a go at my fellow columnist of the cricketer, Mike Brearley, by the way. But I just think a bit of, you cannot afford to have a guy, I think Brearley averaged 22 in Test cricket with the bat. You can't do that if he's a specialist batter. You just can't do it. So no, I take the point. Owen Morgan's been a wonderful captain of the white ball side, but isn't one of the things we've learned actually a bit more specialisation would be helpful? So let him carry on doing the white ball thing. Even make him coach of the white ball thing. That might be a great way to go. But no, we don't want him in the Test team, do we? That's not being able to pay your mortgage and go to the casino territory, isn't it?
Steve asks, is this Ashes series symbolic of the decline in interest in cricket in this country from the recreational game upwards?
Oh, that's a stretch, isn't it? Is there a? I don't know about that. I honestly, the honest answer is I don't know. It clearly doesn't help to have so little cricket for so long on free-to-air TV. It clearly doesn't help that anyone who breaks into a county age group system is asked to pay for their coaching and kids. It clearly doesn't help that there's so little cricket paid in the state school system. These things are all a factor. But I still think there's quite a lot of interest out there.
And finally, Shamim Syed asks, have England seen enough of Josh Butler, the Test player, or will they continue to be hopeful?
I don't know what he has to do to get dropped. It is absolutely ludicrous. I feel, one of the criticisms of Jonny Bairstow is he's had lots of opportunities, but Jonny is one of the many players who was moved to accommodate Joss. So Joss was brought back as a specialist number 7 bat. Well, who are specialist number 7 bats in Test history? List those to me. And then because that didn't work and he wasn't really justifying his place, they gave him the gloves, which is like saying, it's very much, it's going to get political, but I better not. It's very much promoting for not being very good. And we can't think of anyone, Tom Harding, who's ever had that happen to them. So, yeah, that was a remarkable thing to do. So they basically said, Jonny, we're going to change your batting position. And then they moved him he was getting bucket loads of runs at 6 and 7. Moeen was moved. Who else? Ollie Pope had to bat at 4. Was it Milan who was moved as well? There is a list of players who have been inconvenienced to accommodate Josh Butler. And Josh Butler has been given every advantage and he has not delivered. It is categorically time to move on. He is a poor keeper. You know, how many test wickets does Moeen Ali have? Was it 195 he finished with? If he had had Ben Folkes keeping throughout, I bet you'd have had 230. That's how bad the England wicket keeping's been. I remember that game in Barbados where they lost. I reckon Moeen had 3 chances put down in 2 overs. And the thing with Moeen is, he doesn't make a fuss about it. He doesn't go into the media like Stuart Broad, bless him, and say, I'm the most unlucky cricketer in the world. He just goes back to his mark and gets on with it. So he doesn't necessarily get the same sort of trouble. But look, Josh Butler is a great white ball player, maybe the greatest England have ever had. Free him to do that. He looks unhappy, he looks miserable, and he is performing poorly. How long in English cricket to allow people to be players of potential? This is like Graham Hick played 75 tests, Mark Ramprakash, Chris Lewis. These people, you could be promising in English cricket till you're 35. It's absolutely ridiculous. So yes, sorry, I've ranted. They should have moved on from him a while ago. They're picking him because everyone thinks he's a nice fella. He's one of the inner clique. It is soft as all hell. Absolutely move on, categorically. I think he's injured. Don't think he can play at Hobart. I think that should be it. I mean, if you play anyone enough, this is going back to the Jonny Bairstow thing, if you played Ben Duckett in 80 tests, get you a few centuries, because he's a very, very talented player with good hand-eye coordination. And that's the same with if you played Darryl Mitchell in 80 tests, he'd get you some runs. So I honestly think that people who turn around and say, look, he got 100 against India, and I honestly just, over a consistent period of time, batting in the places he's wanted to bat, being given the gloves to take the pressure off him with the bat, he's been tried and he's been found wanting. I don't mean that to be harsh. He's a great white ball player, and that's enough, isn't it? Stop trying to make him a test player. It was a ridiculous hunch from the data boys, and it hasn't worked. It really annoys me, that one, actually. That's Ed Myth's decision. Ed Myth came into that job saying he was going to be led by the data. Well, he actually didn't, to be fair to him, but that's what everyone said. And then you've got Jason Roy opening the batting in Test cricket. It's ludicrous. It's mental. And you've got Ollie Pope batting at 4. You've got all these ridiculous things happening. Don Bess, who I reckon was averaging 40 in second 11 cricket with the ball, picked ahead of Moeen Ali as a test spinner. Come on now. Actually, the prosecution rests there. Sorry, I've ranted there, but I am actually quite angry.
Never have guessed.
Well, it's good that people care. It's good, it's good that people care. And what I've noticed in this series is how much less feedback we've had as it's gone on, because fewer people are bothering to get up. And why the hell would you? Why would you stay up, shivering away in the cold, and watch this debacle?
Yeah, no, I totally.
I'm not sure. I'm actually, in a way, I wonder if some of those Barmy Army fellas Barmy Army people, I should say, are a little bit relieved that they couldn't come this year, because they'd have spent 15 grand or whatever it is to come here and watch this absolute shower. And I often wonder whether they deserve the English cricket deserves the loyalty of the supporters. They take supporters everywhere around the world. And it's not as if you could ever accuse an England cricket supporter of being a glory hunter. They watch them through thin and thinner, in Australia in particular. And they're incredibly lucky to have them. But honestly, this time, you've saved 15 grand. Brilliant.